everyone. My name is Vid Mitrovic. I am the Nature Program Manager at Trellis Group, and I'm excited to welcome you to the Trellis Impact 25 Conference, Day 1, and we're really, really excited to have you here. Thank you for joining in, whether it might be at home or outside or even in the office. We are really grateful to have you join us as we can share more about what's ahead. Today has been a very impactful day so far. Actually, I started my morning off with a run through San Jose's campus with a bunch of other corporate sustainability professionals, and that was really fun. And then I traded in my running shoes with a hard hat and went and toured MRF. For those that don't know, a MRF is a materials recycling facility, and it was huge. It was really impressive to see 45 tons of waste go through this facility in 1 hour and about 85% of material recoverability. Some waste from this complex actually even goes through that, and it was really fun to see. Now I had some lunch, and now we're here at the afternoon keynote session. A little bit about Trellis Impact. First, you must know that it's different this year because it's going to be Verge, GreenFin, and Bloom all in one. So it's 3 conferences in one. Verge is really focused for climate tech innovation professionals. Then we also have GreenFin, which is really focused on sustainability and focused on sustainable finance and ESG. And then Bloom is really focused on biodiversity. The thought process behind having all these conferences in one day is because we're all working part of the same problem, right? So how do we break down these silos? How do we work together to make sure we're solving these problems as fast as we can as we move forward solving this problem? Now, we have keynotes coming up, and I'm really excited about what's ahead. I was actually just backstage with the Ohlone sisters, who you will hear speaking. They'll be really grounding us in being the indigenous people of the San Jose area and really grounding us in the rhythm of how do we just get connected more to the nature around us. And then you will also hear John. He will be, actually, I heard he might be on a skateboard, so be out on lookout for that. A really big focus for all these sessions today is momentum is balance, and I'll unpack that later. But talk about being on a skateboard on a keynote stage. I think that's going to be really fantastic. So stay tuned, stay energized, and stay excited. This is going to be a fun note of keynotes ahead. So see you soon.
Please take your seats and silence your devices. Our program will begin in a few moments.
Go deeper than surface. Leap off the edge and I know you feel nervous. Are we just worthless? Are we still learning or following prophets who run us through circus? People in worship closing our souls till the sound that they heard us. Well, I'm proud to be first in the back door. Take a stand for this earthing. I'm burning from the furnace. I release these haters on purpose. Believe I'm here to be certain. Breathe through the wounds I burnish. To all the pessimism on verses. Your sins are not forgiven, but it's time to close curtain. Surrounded by town, I blocked at the sound for the lessons of you. With no one around and feet on the ground, I took in the truth. I stepped in the shower, soaked in the pound, and such in this too. If you've been down, my love's to you. If this flow seems effortless, like I'm coming off effervescent. No, it didn't come heaven sent. Every step's been fear. My future is clear, now I'm manifesting. These vultures are circling me. At once I yearn to believe. I persisted mercifully. The fact is, none are more worthy than me. I lasted through the masses, put lasted, did practice, face static, made action, play crashes, bring classes. I leverage the energy, helping no break of these seven necessities. We rid me with agency, pain is a process of graces eventually. Dreams of my mind, and for you there's no vacancy. Welcome y'all to Trellis Impact 25. Make noise! What's happening? My name is Mohan Sivaloganathan, also known as Amen. And this movement will not be televised. But let's unpack movements for a moment, right? Because you might have come here for the movement. You might have come here because you're already a part of a movement. And these days, it's like everything is called a movement, right? There's a pro-AI movement, anti-AI movement, traditionalism movement, futurism movement, the 9 hours of sleep movement, the 996 movement, the 6-7 movement. Like 6-7 is like a legit one. Because like every kid in the country knows what it means, but nobody in this room knows what it means. Right? I like to troll my 6-year-old, like I'll be around home like, I don't even know what it means, man. I don't even know what it means. What I will say, though, is that I've had the privilege of being a part of several movements. Some have been pretty powerful, pretty effective. I've worked with young people on the movement for mental health. I've worked with philanthropists, government leaders, veterans, parents on movements for civic engagement. I was a part of Pre-K for All. I worked on the justice reform movement a few years ago. I'm currently working with a group of dads across the country to help other dads to be able to elevate their voices and build communities so that they can foster a new movement for local change making. And so with that, I've learned a couple things about what a movement actually looks like. What does it feel like when it's actually happening? And one thing that I've really discovered that is consistent across any movement that I've seen, that I've been a part of, is that they're about forests and trees. Movements are about forests and trees. So you've got the forest, right? That's all the people, the hundreds, the thousands, the millions who are generating incredible momentum towards shared, transformative, audacious goals. But what is a forest without the trees? What's a forest without the trees? The individual people who have their own sets of aspirations, their own goals, their own struggles, and there's an organized chaos that happens in all that because movements cannot be controlled. Not only won't be televised, they can't be controlled. So what does that mean for all of us here at Trellis Impact 25? Well, 3 things that I hope you all are able to take away from this space. All right, number 1, who here has seen Chappelle's show? We got, yeah, I knew there was a good crowd. All right, so Chappelle's show, they had this skit called The Player Haters Ball. All right, some of y'all might know. I see some people nodding, right? The Player Haters Ball, basically, like you would have all these people coming together, dressed up in really nice clothes. They would hear and see what's happening on stage, and they would just be like, hate, 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 hate. Like that was a Player Haters Ball. So, I'm gonna give y'all permission to take VIP seats at the Player Haters Ball. Like, what does that mean, right? That's like the opposite of toxic positivity. Well, what that means is that within movements, people are very clear in embracing their frustration. They're very clear on that because you might be told otherwise, oh, it's fine. Everything that you're seeing and experiencing, it's fine. But no, it's not. You need to embrace that frustration. What is it that is like really tearing you up, that's keeping you up at night? It could be related to certain value sets, certain principles, certain processes. Embrace that frustration. Okay? That's number 1. That brings me into number 2. When you're going around this space over the next couple of days, I encourage you to not ask people, what do you do for work? All right, don't ask people what you do for work. Ask them, what are you frustrated about? Because you're going to find that there is an incredible diverse array of expertise, skills, talents, jobs here. But when you start asking people what they're frustrated about, that's how you might find your allies. And we need our allies in this work. That's how we form the forests. That's how we go from the individual trees to the forests. And then number 3, so I'm the son of Sri Lankan immigrants. So a quick backstory. My parents came to this country from a small island country off the tip of India with nothing in their pockets. And they would talk for years upon years about those early days where, they were having one meal a day in order to be able to survive, where they wouldn't spend more than $5 to buy a belt. And in one generation, their son is able to be on this stage as someone who's been called a movement entrepreneur, talking to people who are literally changing the world while wearing a fresh pair of the newest Jordans. I mean, come on. Come on, man. Right? In one generation. Come on. Like, the reality for all of us, not just me, for all of us, is that triumph is our truth. Triumph is our truth. And consider everything that you have been through to get to this moment. Everything you have done to get to this moment. The caregiving for loved ones across generations. The innovation that you have unleashed within your school, within your company. The insistence on shaking the status quo and the positive, joyful way that you show up every day. Triumph is your truth, and don't let anybody take that away from you. And movements are fueled by that kind of power. And so, as we get into the rest of the keynotes, there's something that I want y'all to be able to hold on to, right? Because everything that we just now shared here, you may not remember. That's fine. That's fair. But maybe we'll do things a little bit differently. So we're going to do a little call and response. And I hope that some of these lessons around the movement will be able to stick with you. So I like the way this room is set up. So here's what we're going to do. We're basically splitting in the middle. This side right here, when I point at you, when I point at this side, what I want y'all to say is, I can, I have, and I am. Okay? I can, I have, and I am. Let's test that, all right? I can, I have, and I am. This side, when I point at y'all, you're going to say, we can, we have, and we are. All right? We can, we have, and we are. So let's do that on 3. 1, 2, 3. We can, we have, and we are. And then we're going to do something for the whole room. All right? So when I go out like this, what you're going to say is, we are the rising. Okay? We are the rising. All right? So on 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, now let's see how y'all were paying attention. So when that inner voice says, why are you trying to be a part of a movement? It's too scary. It's not your time. You're an imposter. Well, you know what? I can, I have, and I am. And then when other people try to tell you, no, like, you just need to sit back. You need to sit back, let other people figure things out because you're not ready for the moment. You know what you're going to say? We can, we have, and we are. But then people are going to continue to push back, right? And say that, no, you need to keep working your way up the ranks. You need to keep working your way up the ranks and just trust other folks to be able to deal with these incredibly important moments right now. What you say is, I can, I have, and I am. But we don't have enough resources. The political environment's too tough. The cultural environment is too tough. Well, you know what? We can, we have, and we are. Because we are the teachers. We are the leaders. We are the innovators. We are the movement builders. We are the movement. And yes, we are. We are the rising. One more time. One more time. Thank you so much. My name is Mohan. Welcome to Trellis Impact 25. Let's go change the world, y'all.
Please welcome to the stage Vice President of Sustainability and Executive Director, Trellis Impact 25 at Trellis Group, Katie Ryan.
Hi, everybody. We are here. We did it. All 3 communities are together. Hello, Bloom. Hello, GreenFin. Hello, Verge. You know, if we got these three communities together on an island, it would be the weirdest episode of Survivor. It would be like one group planting the trees, one group funding the trees, and one group putting little wind turbines on the coconuts. And at the end of the week, they would have solved capitalism, and nobody would be gone, and the whole island be running off these little coconuts with propeller hats. I mean, this is what I'm talking about for what is possible at Trellis Impact 25. And I really do encourage you to find your community while you are here. You know, maybe you're a Verge. See you, I love you, and you are here for the energy transition, but you are nature curious. Pop into a Bloom session. Maybe you are here for the Regen Ag, and you want to understand your CFO a little bit better. Filter that program for GreenFin and hop into one of those sessions. And network at the networking breaks and put the stickers on your badges because people want to find you. We have time to connect in person, and that's very important, and it feels unique. And there's one more interesting part of that I've been thinking about, which is we're getting together, we're having these insights, all of these learnings, and eventually what we talk about here will be an answer to an AI prompt in the future. And that makes us upstream of AI. Yeah, we are upstream of AI, and that is something that's very cool. You probably figured out I'm your MC for the main stage. I'll be leading us through this 90-minute arc that we've put together for you. I also get to lead the topics and picking the speakers and selecting the formats that will make all of this content come alive for all of us. You're going to get to meet them. Please wave and introduce yourself in the hallways. You'll meet a few of them on the stage as well. And you can finally put a face to the name that's on the emails and that you follow on LinkedIn and that leads your Trellis Network group. We love being here with you. Please say hello. At Trellis, our mission is to empower climate professionals to confront the climate crisis. And this is something that we have been building with momentum over the past 25 years, thanks to Joel McCower and Pete May, who built this thing. Thank you, Joel and Pete. We are so grateful for you. And we've built that momentum through events like this and through editorial, who gets the Trellis briefing. It is so good. And being a part of the Trellis Network. And through this convening and connecting and communicating, we're trying to work together to lift up the work so that you can do your work better, faster, more effectively. And you'll get to experience all three of those pieces live together at Trellis Impact 25. So now, let's get into the theme of the main stage. The theme of the main stage this year is momentum is balance. Now, the origin story for this concept comes from teaching my kiddo, it's not this one, how to ride her bike. I live in a mountain town, there's lots of bike riding, and when she was learning to ride her bike, her coach, because you gotta delegate some things, kept saying, momentum is balance, to make sure that she kept pedaling so that she didn't fall over. And there's a lot of ways to translate momentum is balance to the work that we do. Think about it this way. Maybe you are balancing chipping away at your climate goals in a business moment, or you've got that steadiness that comes from actually doing the work versus stressing about the work or defending the work. Maybe you're one of those small sustainability teams that isn't trying to push a ceiling, but you're trying to raise the floor, and you got a million things coming at you. Keep pedaling. Maybe you're one of those large teams that is spread across an organization, and you got to balance all these goals and these perspectives. Hang on to those handlebars. Because balancing the business while holding everything else steady while innovating requires you to keep pedaling. Also, one more reason I like the bike metaphor is because bikes don't know how to pedal backwards. So it's very helpful to know what we need to do next. We need to go around or through or over, but not backwards. Because pressure is a privilege, and it is a privilege to do this work with all of you. So today you're going to hear from speakers using momentum and building on it to stay upright, handle the curves, keep moving forward. And we're going to start with a couple of speakers who bring with them the generational knowledge of momentum and balance long before they were words that describe today's main stage theme. Their wisdom teaches us that true progress isn't about speed alone, but moving forward in harmony with the rhythms that sustain us. Please help me in welcoming the Aloni sisters to the stage.
Mishishuik Emamakam, Inkate, Ka Inkarat Carla Marie Munoz, Gaha Costano Rumson Carmel tribe, Gaha Rumson speaking Aloni. So good afternoon, my relatives. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Carla Marie Munoz, and I am Rumson speaking Aloni.
Mishishtuk, Ga Inkarak Desiree, Gaha Masis Amane, Gaha Kosano Rumson Carmel tribe, Gaha Rumson speaking Aloni. So good day, everybody. My name is Desiree. I'm very happy to be here. I'm also a member of the Kosano Rumson Carmel tribe, and I'm also Rumson speaking Aloni. Can you all say Aloni? Can you all say Tamian? Tamian is actually one of 8 different Aloni languages that expands from San Francisco Bay throughout the Salinas Valleys and all the way down to Big Sur. Welcome to Aloni territory, and welcome to the place that holds so many places and so many beings of people, and it's the richest soil and it's still the richest land here in California.
So we're not performers, we're just here to share our culture with you today. And it's really important to understand that the Aloni people and the indigenous people of any area are actually the first biodegradable societies. It's really important to understand that today, in our quest for permanent things, we've destructed those lifeways. Now that dependency of our environment around us is broken. Now we put concrete and buildings and roads, which diverts the water and pollutes it. We have to get back to those lifeways. We have to remember to connect, because we all need those trees to breathe. We all need that water to live, and we all need to sustain that ground that we walk on. It's very important that not only do we understand to protect and honor those things, but that those are gifts that we're giving to the next 7 generations to come.
So I want you all to do me a favor, and can you all put your hands together? And I want you to envision your favorite flower, and I want you to smell that flower. And then pretend your flower turned into your birthday cake and blow out your birthday candles. Go ahead and breathe it in one more time. Blow out your birthday candles. What you all just did right now was a beautiful thing, and it was taking a breath. And we do ceremony to this day, and the way we do ceremony is by sharing song. And so one of our important times of the year is this time of year, which is our Aloni New Year. It's when all the acorns are falling, and we have many different traditions and songs, but we want to serenade you with one of our beautiful acorn gathering songs.
Yama
part of who we are coastal dwellers, and when the Spaniards first got here, thank you, we appreciate that. When the Spaniards first got here, they seen us on the coast and they called us costaños, which meant coastal dwellers. And for the longest time, they misnumered our people as Costanoan. It wasn't until they realized we spoke a different language and we had different customs that they renamed us into our language groups. And today we identify as our tribelets and our family ties and kinships. But back then, it was important as it is today to continue to support and honor our water. We have to remember that water has a memory. It remembers us. Water has a spirit. It fills us. We are actually made up of water, and we're born inside of water. So water is so important to our people. So right now, I want to offer a song to the ocean water, that most powerful thing. You know, water we're not getting from Mars. We're not importing it from Jupiter's moons. It's being recycled back here. And it's being recycled with microplastics. And that's really sad. Hopefully we can purify that water and come up with a lot more solutions to help filter that so that we can all have pure water to drink, because we can't import it from anywhere else. It's right here. So this song that we're going to sing is the waves of the ocean as it crashes ashore. And we call out to our 14th generation great-grandfather, Shania, who was a chief in the Carmel Mountains, to join us and help pray for that water. Ocean, 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 Shania, 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 Noah, ocean, 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 Shania, 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 Noah, ocean, 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 Shania, 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 Noah. Oh. So if maybe what you heard gave you a really good feeling in your stomach, maybe it brought a good feeling to your heart, maybe when you heard it, you want to show some appreciation. The way that we show appreciation as Ohlone people is we let out a big oh. So I want to try that with all of you. I'm going to count to 3 and I'm going to point so you all can keep up, because I'm going to do it in Rumsen. But on the count of 3, I would love to hear a big O of appreciation. Imala, Utis, Gapes.
Oh no, we didn't do a good job.
I mean, that was okay.
Maybe.
That was all right. Let's try it one more time. One more time. Let's have outside voices maybe. Imala, Utis, Gapes.
Oh yeah, they like that one. So another thing that you all do, maybe you guys are used to your indoor voices because you guys are stuck in an office all day, but you guys never get a chance to see what's outdoors, what's outside of that office. And one of the things that we love to teach about and that we have migrations and stories of is birds. And in this song, when you're hearing it, you're going to hear the birds that are lively like children and they have a lot of energy. And then you're going to start hearing them as they become adults and more mature and not so loud. But then you're going to hear the elder birds. They could barely hear them, and you got to listen a little bit closer. So in this song, we want you all to hear those different tempos, and I hope you all enjoy it. Oh, okay, we got the O from that. So one thing that we want to leave you with is the 7th generation. You hear everybody always talking about the 7th generation, and as us indigenous folks, you hear it from us the most, but it actually doesn't apply just to us. It actually applies to you, to me, everybody in this room and outside of this room. It's because you are the 7th generation. And what we mean by that is when you're growing up and you're small, who takes care of you is your parents, and who instilled knowledge in them is your grandparents, and who instilled knowledge into them is your great-grandparents. That's 3 generations of knowledge that carried on to you. And when you all decide to extend your families, or you already have them, you are empowering your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. That's 3 generations ahead of you. So just remember that you are the 7th generation, and we are the Ohlone sisters, Carla Marie and Desiree Munoz, members of the Coconut Rumsen Carmel tribe. Oh!
Oh!
Please welcome to the stage Director of Climate Tech Innovation at Trellis Group, Jake Mitchell.
Good afternoon, Trellis Impact 25. It's so good to see so many of you here today. Thank you again to the Ohlone sisters for sharing your indigenous wisdom with us. Our next talk dives into the state of scaling climate tech and asks the question, is climate tech beyond hope? With technologies maturing and the green premium decreasing, perhaps we've entered a new era of climate tech. One where scaling is no longer an aspiration, but now an inevitable next step. With that, I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you in the room, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, investors, accelerators, corporate innovation groups, for working tirelessly for years and even decades for some to transform this if of scaling climate tech to a when. So thank you, thank you, thank you. When I joined Trellis Group a few years ago, in mid-2022, to lead our startup and innovation content, the climate tech scene was different. Startup valuations were high, capital was flowing like never before, and climate tech was the hottest sector in innovation. Then over the last 2 years, the market shifted, right? Interest rates rose, cash flow tightened, policy uncertainty crept in, and frankly, it was easy to get swept into the doom and gloom of it all. But if I've learned anything over the last few years, it's this. Climate tech entrepreneurs don't back down. They adapt, they find new market pathways, unlock new regional incentives. They make it work even in the tough times, and suffice to say, they're resilient as all hell. And that brings us to our next speaker today, Elaine Shea. Elaine and I first met on this very stage 4 years ago for our annual pitch competition, Startups to Watch. Quick side note, you can catch the Startups to Watch pitch competition finals tomorrow at 3 p.m. in the breakout program. I hope to see many of you there. Mark it in Hoover in your agenda now. But back to Elaine. Elaine is my go-to for what's really happening in climate tech. She's seen this space from nearly every angle. As co-founder of Third Derivative, one of the world's largest climate tech accelerators, advisor at the DOE, and now an investor at Volo Earth Ventures. And yes, she even ran this very event once upon a time when she worked at Trellis. So today, if you're looking to understand the real momentum that our climate tech community has trailblazed and where we're headed, you'll get a lot from this talk and why we might just be beyond hope. Trellis Impact 25, please join me in welcoming to the stage Elaine Shea.
Yeah, thanks. For years, talk about climate tech has been filled with hope. Hope that technology would mature. Hope that investment would follow. Hope that policy would catch up.
And I'll be honest, this is the part where things start to feel a little pie in the sky. You know what I mean? Sweeping claims, big adjectives, the occasional slow clap for transforming the world. I'm not really wired that way. So to keep us honest, I added some graphs. For folks in the audience who, like me, still need evidence that what we're talking about is actually happening. Because the truth is, we've moved beyond hope. Across every major sector, energy, materials, manufacturing, and mobility, the transition isn't hypothetical anymore. Last year, 90% of new global power capacity came from renewables. That's data from the International Energy Administration, the Bloomberg New Energy Finance, and IRENA. That's not ambition, that's evidence. As my former boss, David Crane, recently said, the energy transition isn't waiting for permission, it's already being built. So the question now isn't if the transition will happen, it's how fast, how boldly we'll build what comes after hope. Everywhere we look, we see signs of unstoppable momentum. Here are 5 signals that tell us this transition is inevitable. First, ambition has become in evidence. Solar, wind, and battery costs have fallen by more than 80% in the last decade. And for the first time, clean energy additions now outpace fossil fuel construction worldwide. The dream of clean energy has become an engineering reality, and markets are responding faster than any policy ever could. The second signal, markets have grown up. The tourist crowd, the dabblers chasing trends, they're gone. What remains is a focused core of conviction-led innovators, investors, and builders. They're not speculating anymore, they're scaling. Purpose and execution are now aligned, and that's what every industry looks like right before acceleration. So, for those who want proof, deal counts are down, but checks are getting bigger. That's conviction-led investment. It's a sign of market confidence, not contraction. Third, economics drive adoption, because the moment the cleaner option becomes the cheaper, better performing one, adoption becomes inevitable. Take Blue Frontier, one of Volo Earth's portfolio companies. Air conditioning is one of the biggest drains on the grid, especially during summer peaks. It combines superior cooling performance with built-in energy storage, shifting up to 12 hours of demand without batteries. It delivers up to 90% better efficiency than conventional systems, and actually, get this, gets more efficient as temperatures rise. In other words, it turns one of the grid's biggest problems into a resilience solution. That's the new economics of climate tech, solving environmental pain points by design. The fourth signal, inefficiency creates opportunity. The market still trails the scale of the challenge, held back by uncertainty, policy that's uneven, and legacy systems. But those gaps, they're not barriers, they're frontiers. Take Nth Cycle, which extracts critical minerals from old batteries and e-waste without toxic chemicals or overseas supply chains. They're scaling faster than incentives can even catch up, because conviction fills the space where policy hesitates. And here's what that looks like in data. Recycling and recovery are accelerating exponentially, while policy and primary extraction are still crawling by comparison. So if you look at the orange and blue lines, policy and extraction are lagging behind the technological momentum that's already reshaping supply chains. And if you look at the green line, after 2025, we start to see rapid scaling of recycling. That's the compounding payoff of innovation leading the way. This is exactly the gap that companies like Nth Cycle are filling, turning inefficiency into advantage and policy delay into market opportunity. And that brings us to the fifth signal. Resilience wins. The most transformative companies aren't just disruptive, they're durable. Like XGS Energy, redefining geothermal power with closed-loop wells that tap steady heat from the earth, delivering 24/7 clean baseload energy without relying on scarce water, fuel, or even specific geology. And that same resilience principle is now shaping the entire grid. In the US alone, small-scale distributed energy installations are growing nearly 30% year over year. From geothermal baseload power to distributed solar and storage, we're seeing a shift toward energy systems that can bend, adapt, and keep running when conditions change. That's what resilience looks like, durable models that compound progress like a flywheel gaining speed. Now, our job is to scale what works, to act with urgency, to invest with purpose, to lead with proof. We don't need another inspirational monologue about believing in the future. We need the data, the courage, the conviction to build it. This is the era of pragmatic idealism, doing what works at the speed the planet requires. Because optimism isn't a mood anymore, it's a measure of progress. The energy transition won't be defined by those who predicted it. It will be defined by those who have the conviction to build it. And that's the work ahead of us. Not someday, not someone else. Us, here, now. That's what comes after hope.
Please welcome back to the stage, Katie Ryan.
One more time for Elaine. I mean, yeah. Make sure that you're following her, at least on LinkedIn, if not in real life, because she's a force. I like that one. I wanted to just take a quick minute and thank our sponsors. These sponsors made Trellis Impact 25 possible, bringing together all of our communities so that we could have meaningful connection and impact. These names that you're seeing up here represent more than just making this event possible. They are showing real partnership in the mission of moving this work forward. We have sponsors and partners. I'm sure you're participating in partner events as well. For example, I hope that you make it to the Zendarium. It is like very calming. Follow the signs right there, very good. You might also recognize how much sustainability plays a role in our daily operations here as well. Make sure to do your part and put your lanyard in the right spot and return the cups in the right spot so that we can, walk the talk. I also want to give a special shout out to our 10 emerging leaders. This group of emerging leaders, please look at these faces and make sure that you introduce yourself when you see them. They join a group of over 100 underrepresented voices in our professional community. We've been doing this work since 2017. We provide mentoring and leadership and connections for these emerging leaders to bring more diverse perspectives into this field that we all love so very much. You can check out more about the Emerging Leaders Program on our website and get involved in a number of ways. I'm going to do a quick behind-the-scenes main stage peek for you guys as I introduce this next speaker. So I fell in love with the theme, Momentum is Balance. You guys heard me talk about it. I truly love this theme. It's the theme of tomorrow, too, so bring your best self to that. And when I was thinking about that theme, I was like, oh, I really want a speaker who literally does the momentum is balance thing. And then I thought about our stage and I was like, I can't bring a bike up here. We'll never make it. But then I was like, oh, I think we could get a skateboard. And so I started asking around for, hey, what about a skateboarder with heart? Anybody know a skateboarder with heart? And I got connected to John Magana. He is a literal story of having heart and momentum and balance. He has become an ultra runner. He is a skateboard instructor. He is a veteran. He is a student. And he's going to be your next favorite speaker. Please welcome to the stage, John Magana.
Momentum, the quantity of motion of a moving body. I learned at an early age that if I wanted to increase my momentum, I needed to increase my failures. Balance. It's the even distribution of weight that allows you to remain upright and steady. To learn balance, I first had to learn how to fall. Momentum and balance hinge on your relationship with failure. Skateboarding taught me how to fall, but more importantly, it taught me how to fall forward. And the most important thing I've learned from skateboarding is this: a meaningful life is built on accepting failure and helping others fall forward too. At 11 years old, skateboarding was my world. My dream was to go pro. But skateboarding meant failing a lot. Every fall, every stumble, and every slam taught me something. Once I accepted this, my skateboarding changed. People would tell me, "You make it look so easy." And I would always laugh because it only looked easy after thousands of falls, dozens of near concussions, and hundreds of almost broken bones. At 19 years old, I joined the Coast Guard after realizing that becoming a professional skateboarder wasn't in the cards. This realization felt like a bad fall, and for the first time, I wasn't going to get up. In order to deal with this failure, I changed my passion and I changed my dream, saving and changing lives. The Coast Guard is unique. I remember in boot camp being so prepared for it because skateboarding had taught me everything I needed to know. Short bursts of energy, constant repetition, and learning to push through failure. These were all things I already knew. I watched my peers break down when the drill instructors screamed that they were failing. When they told me I was failing, I thought, good, that's how I grow. The Coast Guard is unique because you get to choose your own occupation within the service. I chose aviation engineering. Saving lives at sea became my mission. All I needed to do was pass a routine flight physical. Unfortunately, that exam went south after an EKG came back abnormal. Soon after, a naval cardiologist informed me that I was unknowingly born with a heart condition that had somehow gone unnoticed my whole life. There was a hole in my aortic valve. After more tests and meetings, I was told not only would I not be able to become a flight engineer, but that I was going to be discharged from the military. If a career-ending heart disease diagnosis wasn't enough, I was told that my condition required open heart surgery as soon as possible. At the height of the pandemic, I was labeled high risk. I was alone, I was isolated, and I was scared. 4 months later, my cardiac surgeon would give me two options. Option one, a plastic valve. This was a low-risk surgery that meant that I could never skateboard again, let alone be active. Option two, this was a more invasive, higher-risk surgery that was temporary. It only lasted 10 to 15 years. But with this surgery, the capabilities were higher. I could skate, and I can push myself physically. When my eyes closed for that surgery, everything stopped. My life, my momentum, my balance. And when my eyes opened, I felt more pain than I had ever felt in my entire life. It felt like accumulating all the falls that I'd ever taken, all at once. Walking, breathing, even eating was difficult. But little by little, these failures became wins. Walking became running. 30 seconds of running became a minute. And a minute became a few miles. 6 months later, I crossed the finish line in my first marathon. And when I picked up my skateboard again, I had a deeper appreciation than ever before. Although I was happy with the direction of my life, my dream was still the same: helping people and changing lives. And so in order to continue to pursue this dream, I started coaching skateboarding. This was just supposed to be a side job until I got back on my feet. But what I didn't expect was how much these kids would teach me. These brave little students have taught me that skateboarders are unique. We go into our passion knowing that failure is inevitable. We know we're going to fall. We know we're going to get hurt. And we do it anyway, because we know we'll get back up. So if you ever find yourself needing to find comfort with failure, fall like a skateboarder. For so long, I had been falling and getting up on my own. But these kids reminded me that the greatest joy isn't in achieving your own goals. It's in helping someone else achieve theirs. A meaningful life isn't just about our own momentum. It's about increasing someone else's. It's about helping others find their balance and showing them how to fall forward too. I think the same is true for the challenges that we face together. Progress doesn't come from avoiding failure, but from learning how to fall forward together, to keep our momentum, to find our balance, to help each other up when we stumble. So if you ever feel like you've lost your momentum and you can't find balance in your own actions, find that momentum and balance in helping those around you. Because sometimes the surest way to stay upright is to help someone else up. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage, founder and director at Carbon Capital Lab, Margaret Morales.
So carbon removal has no natural buyer. It's something that when you look at every climate pathway we can think of to limit damage to life on this earth from climate change, we know we need it. We need a lot, gigatons, billions of tons of carbon removal taken out of our atmosphere at the same time as we decarbonize our economy. So from a planetary scale, that's a very good case for carbon removal. But from the perspective of an individual company charting out its climate roadmap, carbon removal, I would say, is very rarely a top priority. And if it is on that roadmap, it's generally something for down the line, when we're closer to our target years, when the market makes a little more sense. It's rarely something we're dealing with today. Nan Ransahoff sees it differently. Nan is head of climate at Stripe, and she also founded Frontier. Frontier is a coalition of companies that together have committed to purchase over $1 billion of permanent carbon removal. So I asked Nan to come join me on stage today and talk to me about the path forward for this climate solution. So Nan, thank you for being here.
Great to see you.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, so I want to start with that why question. If you are a company with limited budget, limited time, why should carbon removal be part of your strategy right now?
I think you already kind of made the case for this. In order to avoid the worst effects of climate change, the IPCC is very clear. So the science is very clear. We are both going to have to do a huge amount of emissions reductions, and we also have to do carbon removal in order to achieve net zero. If we as corporates, as companies, want our programs to align with the science, we have to do both. And the good news is that because there have been a lot of early buyers in carbon removal over the past 5-6 years, these technologies do exist more. They are starting to come down the cost curve, and it's no longer a kind of fringe thing to buy carbon removal. It's increasingly a standard part of most corporate programs at this point, and it's a lot easier to do now than it was 5 years ago.
Okay, so I would say if I'm a company, I have $1 to spend on carbon removal. It's kind of a complicated space. There's a lot of pathways. evaluating which project is going to be more effective, it feels complex. So how would you advise a company with a relatively small budget to deploy that towards carbon removal?
Yeah, we very much faced this challenge ourselves at Stripe when we were starting to buy carbon removal back in 2020. And you're exactly right. Most companies want a diversified portfolio of solutions, and evaluating them, finding and evaluating them is tricky. We now have a staff of nearly 10 PhDs and other commercial experts and technical experts to do this. Some companies want to build out their own corporate program of a team of people, of scientists, of commercial folks working on this, but a lot don't. And part of the reason that we started Frontier was to make it much easier for a broader set of companies to buy permanent carbon removal really rigorously in a really impactful way. So right now with Frontier, Stripe is of course a part of it, but we also are joined by Google and H&M and JP Morgan and a lot of other smaller companies, Canva, Skims. There's a pretty broad set of companies now that are buying carbon removal through Frontier, and different companies I think want different things out of it, but there are a lot that want high impact but don't want to spin up a team of 15 people. So whether it's Frontier or something else, there are increasingly a lot of intermediaries and companies and organizations that can help facilitate that and make it a lot easier. Like, don't not buy carbon removal because it's hard. There are a lot of solutions, I think, for that now.
Can you talk a little bit about, you say different companies want different things out of being part of Frontier. So what are some of those reasons you hear?
Well, I think everybody that is buying carbon removal knows that this is an important part of a net zero strategy for a company and getting to net zero. I think that the ways that it differs is that there are some companies that really love nerding out on the science. They want to meet these teams of teams that are actually doing the carbon removal. They want to get to understand what are the benefits of direct air capture versus ocean alkalinity enhancement versus bikers. And then you have a number of other companies that are like, we have so much other stuff that we have to do. We do not want to think about this. Can you just do it for us? Both of those are very valid. It sort of depends on the context that you're in, and we try to be flexible to both. So if you want to nerd out, we're right there with you, and if you don't ever want to think about it, that is also fine.
Okay, so you founded Frontier in 2022.
Yep.
But even before that, you were purchasing carbon removal with Stripe. So you've watched the space grow for at least 5 years. I'm curious, if we continue at the pace of growth that you've seen for the last 5 years, where do you think we will end up, say, in 2050?
The carbon removal story is an interesting one because, on the one hand, the starting gun for carbon removal was the 2018 IPCC report. For all intents and purposes, this is a very young field, and we've made massive progress since 2018 as a field. So there's been, huge, huge progress and trajectory, and this, as you mentioned, we need to get to 5 to 10 billion tons per year by 2050, and we are not on track to do that. So there has both been a lot of progress, and there is a really long way to go. And part of the reason that there has been less progress than we'd like is, as you mentioned, carbon removal doesn't have a natural buyer. And so without customers, it's hard for companies to get started. It's hard for investors to put a lot of money into this space. And so eventually this is going to have to be policy-driven, probably at government scale to get to the size necessary. But in the meantime, voluntary corporate buyers play a very, very important role in helping get these companies started and get them down the cost curve and to help them scale up, so that when government policy does start to become a sort of bigger and bigger piece of the puzzle, there is even something to buy. So even though carbon removal is really, is kind of not at the very starting line, because we've been doing this for 5-6 years now, there's a very, very important role, in our opinion, for early buyers to sort of really accelerate these technologies down the cost curve. I think without that, getting to 2050 is going to be tough.
So in a way, being an early buyer is being a catalyst of this market.
For sure. And this is not dissimilar to other technologies that have had similar trajectories, like solar or phones or TVs. New technologies start off expensive at the beginning and costs come down over time as they scale, but they need early buyers. And so we're seeing the same thing play out in carbon removal, and early buyers can really help these technologies, can catalyze them down the cost curve and up the volume curve.
So I'm going to go back to that team, the sustainability team that is budget constrained, it is time constrained, it's probably only a couple of people. I think making that case like, hey, let's do this really catalytic thing for the world, let's be part of this, I think that can be a tough case to make to a C-suite, to other teams. But you've worked with a lot of companies that have made that case and are moving forward. So do you have, what are your insights from hearing from the companies who are part of Frontier?
What we've seen work time and time again is a couple of things, sort of a bundle of a few things. The first thing is, again, really aligning the program around the science. Carbon removal is, for better or for worse, a critical part of getting a company to net zero, getting our world to net zero and getting a company to net zero. So, a ton of emissions is permanent. We have to take it out permanently as well. So I think the first piece is just grounding it in the science. These are not, if your company wants to get to net zero, this is not optional. It is a requirement in order to do that. And that's sort of step one. Because these technologies tend to be expensive currently, what we see a lot of organizations do is essentially build out a portfolio that is some permanent removal and some non-permanent removal, and then shift the sort of mix of those over time. So starting at a lower percentage of permanence now that increases over time, which makes the weighted average cost more palatable to exec teams. So that's something that we've seen work really well. The other sort of argument to make, I think, is early buyers now often get with their contracts a return of, basically a ROFO, like a right of first offer, where you get access to future tons now if you contract today. So I think that can also be another argument of why go now? Well, we'll have the first bite at the apple for future tons that this company actually produces, which can be to their advantage.
Okay, one more question. Most surprising thing you've learned over the last 3 years with Frontier?
I don't know if this should be surprising or not, but I think that carbon removal is hard tech, right? This is like doing real things in the real world. I'm a relatively impatient person, and so I think that I've had to remind myself that we are both moving really quickly, but also that once a company gets an offtake, they have to take that offtake, they have to go raise financing, they have to then turn that money into steel on the ground, start operating the plant, and get things off to the running. That's a lot to do in, this field, again, has mostly been around for like 5-6 years. So I'm trying to sort of both channel my impatience for good, but also be a bit more realistic as to this just takes time to scale, as is true for every single kind of atoms-focused company rather than bits-focused company. And that is, we're going to push as fast as we can, but also doing things in the real world is a whole thing.
I think that ties perfectly. Momentum is balance. All right, Nan, thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please welcome back to the stage, Katie Ryan.
Hi, I'm going to introduce our last speaker for the day by telling you a little bit of a story. This is one of my favorite Gavin McCormick stories. So there was a day, okay, I should go backwards. Okay, so Gavin is the executive director at WattTime, and WattTime became a foundational partner in Climate Trace, a collaboration that ended up being inclusive of Al Gore. So this is early days at WattTime, and Gavin is going to meet Al Gore for the first time. And a group of WattTimers are there to meet Gavin after he has this first Al Gore meeting. And he walks in, and he is like shining. And he says, Al Gore and I have the same watch. And it's not a fancy watch, y'all. It's like a practical, good watch. And that is so much of what I think when I think about Gavin. You can't steer him off of any course that isn't about impact and change and how fast can we do it. So please welcome to the stage our closing speaker for the main stage today, Gavin McCormick.
Thank you, Katie. So my name is Gavin McCormick, and I'm part of a coalition called Climate Trace that monitors emissions. And I was planning to tell you that there's a lot of good news in the world that you don't know about, but unfortunately the earlier speakers were so excellent at sharing some of that good news that you already know. But what I've learned is that it's one thing to share good news, and it's much, much harder to get reporters to share a story that the bad news turned out not to be true. So one of the things that I just wanted to give you a little bit of a warning about is that I am about to share some news with you that emissions monitoring often finds not only that some things are better than you think, but some things are less bad than you think. So be surprised in a moment, I hope. And so what is Climate Trace? We are a coalition that monitors emissions using satellites and machine learning, and we're really large. There's about 100 collaborating nonprofits, universities, and other data providers. That what we're collectively doing is specializing in different forms of emissions monitoring and sort of Wikipedia style bringing it all together. It started with the grant to my organization Watt Time from google.org to monitor power plant emissions from space. Al Gore got involved, and we just kept growing and growing and growing, and now we have this very large nonprofit coalition. And what we do is we each specialize in different forms of emissions monitoring. So for example, on the left, you can see at Watt Time we specialize in detecting steam plumes from certain types of power plants from space that correlate extremely well with emissions. For certain types of power plants, you can't cause emissions without causing a certain amount of steam. So you can actually use that to measure their emissions in real time around the world. Groups like RMI monitor invisible methane coming from oil and gas and can use satellites and machine learning to detect that form of emissions. A cool type of radar called AIS is used by a group called Ocean Mine to monitor shipping emissions. Spectroscopy, the same type that we use to detect exoplanets. Global Plastics Watch is using that to monitor all the landfills in the world. We put this all together into a big project, and anyone can go to climatetrace.org and see not self-reporting from emitters, but objective third-party reporting from emitters. And so you can go on the website, you can see, for example, the little bars on the right are all lower. That's because 2025 hasn't finished yet. So our estimates of the annual emissions of different facilities give you somewhat real-time information. And a key difference is that historically, the Paris Agreement, corporate self-reporting, it's all been based on emitters talking about how much they are emitting, and the rest of us just have to take their word for it. They can hide. Those days are increasingly over. Because what has happened is that as of November 2024, Climate Trace was delighted to announce that the 700 million facilities that we can now monitor the emissions of, if you add up all those emissions for the first time ever, an emissions inventory that is bottom-up matches the top-down emissions that folks like NASA and the European Space Agency see from space. So for the first time ever, we believe we actually have a truly comprehensive picture of climate change. We have found in many cases there are about 4 times more landfills than governments even know about. Many forms of oil companies have indeed been falsifying their emissions. The good news is many other companies have not been. And when we add this all up, we now have a much more comprehensive picture of what's going on. Why does this matter? Because it starts to be very useful when you have a comprehensive inventory to ask questions like, how are we doing? So the Secretary General of the United Nations asked us to look into this theory that under the Paris Agreement, countries just say how much they're emitting. No one checks. It's all voluntary. And there's this widespread distrust among negotiators that countries are lying. So we were asked to produce a list of all the countries in the world that have falsified their emissions data. We were shocked when the answer came back 0. So it turns out that we could not find a single example worldwide of a country under the Paris Agreement doing anything other than honestly doing their best to report emissions. So a fundamental issue to climate negotiations, which is the belief that everybody was trying to trick each other, just turned out to be not right at all. And the data radically contradicted the widespread belief of experts in the field who had just been assuming there was a problem. So I got really interested into, wait a minute, if people just assumed that was bad, what else might not be as bad as we think? And I started looking, and the more I look, the more stories I find. Here's another one, transportation. So transportation is one of the largest sectors, about 6 gigatons globally. That's something like 10% of climate change. And we all have heard the narrative that EV sales are slowing. You know where this is going. This is completely not supported by the data. So yes, in the US, they are slowing slightly. But in 2025, globally, EV sales are accelerating. The supposedly losing team, the electric vehicles, have a growth rate approximately 6 times the supposedly winning team, gasoline vehicles. The narrative is radically different than what we are actually seeing in the data. And we find this story over and over. Many people know that solar and wind is doing very well, but they have heard this myth that we are having trouble balancing grids. The very name Watt Time of my organization comes from the idea that surely, because the sun is shining only sometimes, the wind is blowing only sometimes, surely we are going to have a crisis that all this wind and solar is not going to make it possible to balance grids. But what's actually happening is no one is talking about all the flexible renewable energy that still dramatically outperforms solar and wind in terms of the total volume and is growing really, really fast. And so we see that there is this belief by energy ministers that the energy transition is hard. We talk about 2050 plans, 2055 plans to decarbonize power grids. And there's a belief that because intermittency is difficult, you can't run renewable energy around the clock very easily. Surely, it takes decades to decarbonize a country's power grid. But what we actually see in the data is when countries just do it, it takes 5 years. Uruguay is done with the energy transition. We are now at 1% fossil fuel energy in Uruguay. When I first saw this claim, I thought this can't be true. This is not a wealthy country. They have a small grid, which is way harder to balance. There must be a catch. But when we look from space at fossil fuel power plants in Uruguay, we do indeed see they are turned off all the time. It is not true that it was difficult for them to completely achieve the energy transition. This was 10-year-old technology in a poor country, and what they did is they saved 60% of their energy costs as a nation and reduced volatility. It's just not true that it's as hard as people think. And they're just the first of many. Another story we keep hearing is that AI is causing an emissions crisis because it uses electricity more than entire countries. That turns out to be true. So the data actually supports, oh yeah, AI really is using that much electricity. But here's the catch. Why would that cause emissions? AI only causes an emissions crisis if, in fact, that is dirty energy. And when people look from space, like Southern Environment Law Center flew a drone using thermal infrared cameras over the XAI data center and confirmed, oh yeah, they are running natural gas turbines to power that thing. But the thing is, that's super weird because no one else is doing that. That is a very exceptional data center that is making all the headlines in the news. And when you look at the amount of electricity that different major companies we are all worried about, what's happening is they're using massive quantities of electricity and it's almost all clean. I have a slight typo in Amazon which is using a little bit of fossil fuels still. But this is Microsoft data which includes, for example, ChatGPT. Over the last 5 years in the supposed AI emissions boom, Microsoft emissions have gone a further 14% down. Meta emissions have gone an astonishing 82% down. They're basically done. So the supposed AI emissions crisis appears to be caused by a belief that surely it must be true that the self-reporting from these companies is not accurate. Maybe they're ignoring the time or the place or the requirement to build renewable energy instead of just take somebody else's renewable energy. And what we find is, yeah, there's a gap between current rules and what's actually going on, but it's like tiny. The entire global AI gap from every AI company put together, even the ones that are not even trying to build renewable energy like Tencent and Alibaba, that is less than the pulp and paper industry or the glass industry. It's just nonsense to say that there's an AI emissions crisis. But what's happening is that because there's so much electricity, people are just assuming there's a crisis. And so what we're seeing is that to solve a crisis that isn't there, there's increasingly a bit of a desperation move happening. So, for example, the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which people may have heard of, has proposed this idea of hourly matching, location matching, but no new build requirement. In plain English, yeah, if you make sure that you follow all of these rules, it will increase your energy costs about 6 times, but it will make darn sure that that little gap in emissions goes away. This is a good solution if you're willing to spend whatever it takes. But the proposal is that every company worldwide that wants to have a net zero target would have to follow these rules. That's a problem if you're a hospital, a university, a cement company. And further, when you dig deeper into these rules, what you find is that when companies are forced to comply, what happens is they find clever loopholes. So the main way you can comply with these rules is you buy somebody else's renewable project. You essentially trade projects. On paper, your emissions go down, but all you've done is to shuffle the emissions. Why am I telling you this in the middle of a good news story? Because what we find is that this is a regulation that is increasingly common. This is an idea that is coming from fear. There's a crisis that is based on news stories that are not actually data-backed, assuming there's a problem. There's no actual scientific evidence there's a problem. And the solution is we need to hurt the companies. We need to have harder, more expensive rules. But there's actually no evidence that doing so would help emissions. But where it's coming from is a belief that there are no alternatives. And so I wanted to show you an example of the kind of alternative that doesn't hurt companies. These are common patterns in every industry. So here in California right now, this is a graph of surplus-free wind and solar that is just getting thrown away. For a sense of scale, California routinely throws away enough surplus clean energy to power all of Alaska. You could power an entire state just in what we are chucking out the bin, and it's growing exponentially. In fact, 1/3 of the time in California, including probably right now this time, you flip a light switch, you cause no pollution at all. That's how much renewable energy surplus we have. It is not true anymore that consuming electricity has to cause pollution. And so a really different approach you could have to cut the carbon footprint of things is to say, let's use energy at those spikes when we have lots of clean surplus energy, and let's not use it at other times. And so this has been proposed as sort of a silver bullet. And so we all know the story. Silver bullets don't exist, except they really do. I'm not talking about a study. This is not a hypothetical. This is historical data for the state of California. The world's largest energy storage program, the SGIP program in California, required that batteries have to look at how much pollution they're causing when, and they have to eliminate their pollution overnight. It was a $1,000 a ton carbon fine if you cause 1 ton of emissions. It was the most stringent policy I've ever heard of. But actually, industry did not oppose it because it's super easy. And so this is an example of where eliminating the carbon footprint of an entire industry overnight actually happened with industry support, because it's not true anymore that it's difficult to go green. If you actually look at the data, we can do this, and we have more momentum than people realize. In fact, the next step that happened was really surprising. This was a mandatory regulation pushed on companies to lower their emissions. And what happens next is so many companies had a good experience, they said, we're going to voluntarily start doing this outside of California. And so last month, we crossed 1 billion devices worldwide, 6% of all devices that have the technical capability to do anything on an hourly level, to actually receive a signal. 1 billion of them began voluntarily reducing their emissions by optimizing for times when there's free surplus clean energy. They don't get any credit for it. There's no regulation. They can't even report on their carbon accounting numbers. But it's just not hard. And so honestly, out of the goodness of their hearts, we are having large numbers of companies that do smart thermostats, electric vehicles, batteries, laptops, phones, just start running on clean energy because why not anymore? And we're finding in industry after industry, it really is true that it's getting easier like this. So I came here from Philadelphia, and I was going to take the second flight on that list, but I switched the first flight because Google Flights has this really cool feature right now where they can show you the carbon footprint of different flights. And I started doing this thing where I just hop on and I say, hey, is there any flight that would be lower carbon footprint that has no catch? And what I'm accustomed to is everybody assumes there's a catch. So take a look at this graph. It shows that I managed to save about 25% emissions by taking a lower carbon flight. Did I spend more? No, I actually saved $10 from the flight I was going to do. Was it a longer flight? No, I actually got here 2 hours faster. I even got to sleep in 10 minutes. And so what I'm seeing in the data is that we have this widespread belief that the green premium is still around and that it is still hard. And there are cases where that is true. But what data are really starting to do is uncover that there are more and more cases where it just doesn't work like that anymore. Just look at the science and what's really happening, and you really can have your cake and eat it too. And that's what happens when we live in a world where clean energy is so abundant that it's just becoming easy now. So I wanted to leave you with the final thought, which is that although there are a lot more people reducing emissions than you think, although we have countries that have successfully eliminated emissions from their power grids, and there are all these win-win solutions, we need a lot of them. So I wanted to encourage you, I don't care if you do it at Climate Trace or Carbon Mapper or any other group, but go to one of these websites that show what are the easy ways to reduce emissions, and just find things that are a win-win for whatever your priorities are. If it's cost, if it's making your boss happy, I don't care. But I wanted you to know that there are many, many ways starting to happen to reduce emissions that don't have a catch, even in the current political environment, even in the current economy. And I wanted to encourage you to embrace the momentum that's here right now. Thank you.
Okay, one more time for Gavin, because that was good. I mean, I thought he would have 2 myths to bust. We should count that up. I mean, this is going to be one of those talks that I share with everybody, watch again and again, because he just nails it point after point after point. I'm so excited for you guys to continue this conversation over dinner. This is the end of your main stage program, so go out into the breakouts. I'll see you at the reception tonight. I will see you back in this room tomorrow. And for all of my beautiful live stream viewers, hang out with us because we got some good interviews coming to you on the live stream. Thank you so much for joining us. I will see you out there.
What a great start to Trellis Impact 2025. I really like the theme, balance and momentum. I think it is such a great way to really think about this moment we are in climate. I just love that analogy of, if you can just picture it, a kid trying to pedal their bike and losing momentum, but just continuing to pedal to go through it. It's a really stark sort of analogy to where we are right now in climate. We've had training wheels, right? We've had the support from governments, whether it be in the US with the Inflation Reduction Act, but also in local markets as well. And now we have to learn how to pedal without those training wheels. And the only way to keep the momentum up is to continue pedaling. And so that is just so resonant for the current moment we're in right now in climate. And I'm really excited to see how we can kind of further unpack this with these further interviews. Now, 2 highlights from the keynotes that just presented. One, I don't know if you saw on the live stream, but Mohan was an incredible rapper. He was actually rapping through the crowd before he got to the stage, so you might have missed that a little bit, but he is just always has high energy. And a fun fact that he also presented at GreenBiz this year too, so we loved him so much we wanted him back. And then I love the data-driven optimism that Gavin McCormick just shared. Actually had a fun moment with him during New York City Climate Week. We were able to chat and nerd out about a lot about climate. But what I love is that he is working on making sure that these ideas are actually turning into reality. And so with the data-driven work he's doing, we're now going to shift that from all these ideas that we have going on to reality, and we have about a few speakers that we're going to be interviewing after this break, so stay tuned.
This is it. We have to come together to make huge leaps forward.
CNOT is the easiest way for companies of all sizes to purchase a portfolio of high-integrity carbon credits. Join other leaders in offsetting your emissions with highly rated carbon reduction and removal credits, all in a matter of minutes. Let CNOT do the hard work for you.
Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined now by Sarah Mourinho, Senior Director of Sustainability at DP World. Sarah, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's just get straight to work, actually. So DP World, you've been advancing some really inspiring nature projects, right, with living seawalls and mangrove restoration. How are these initiatives helping you kind of on the efficiency and resiliency of your operations in North America?
The sustainability at DP World is really, I think, fascinating because for us, sustainability is where trade meets purpose. It's where the movement of goods around the world connects to local communities and the environment to find solutions that couple people positive and nature positive to economic development. Mm-hmm. And in places that we work, for example, in the Dominican Republic, we have a large terminal there. It's near disadvantaged communities. They have issues with deforestation of mangroves and coral bleaching. And how do we enable the restoration of nature to support the communities that then supports our workforce at the terminal and also the economic success of our terminal and of the country, because we're bringing in and exporting a lot of goods.
Wow. Okay. I'm kind of curious, like, if you were to just explain more about, let's say, that project in the Dominican, like, what does that look like in sort of like the restoration? Like, what were you doing on the ground in the community? What were you restoring, and what was maybe that effects afterwards?
Absolutely. The team in the Dominican Republic has done just a phenomenal job of working with the community in Boca Chica to first start working with the youth. So trying to help them get skills, education, access to job markets that they didn't think they had access to before. And then as we've built the relationship with the community, also working with local organizations, and I mean like very small, like one woman who has a beachfront business that she inherited from her family to do a mangrove restoration, and it's maybe like 1 meter by 1 meter that was designated as a park. She started a nonprofit, and we have helped accelerate her work by expanding to 400 mangrove seedlings being planted in that bay. Wow. With the intention that this will be a year-over-year increase with that group. Wow. And you know how that affects the erosion from hurricanes and the impacts on businesses when they lose that beachfront and they lose their homes and their livelihoods. Those mangroves hold everything, almost like anchor the community in so many ways.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned this, and I really love the angle you're taking here in terms of like it's not just about the environment, but it's also about the people you work with. Is there anything else you want to share about just like the people philosophy behind the work you're doing at DP World?
Yeah, I really love this particular job that I'm in because it's the first time I've had the opportunity to work so much with community investment and to see how the change that you can affect in the community changes their entire perception of their place in the world and their opportunities, and that how that then reflects in what they want to give back to the environment, to the economic prosperity of their home. Yeah. And it's I had the opportunity in Caucedo to meet with the group of young people that we work with, and just hearing their stories and seeing how much it literally, you can see the change on their faces. Wow. It was beautiful.
Oh, that sounds like really impactful work. I know you guys are around the globe, and probably in North America, South America, and so on, and you have impact everywhere. But as a corporate, I'm actually curious of like what are some pilot projects that are sort of scaling that you're helping scale up within your operations? Like what's been working and you're like, I want to double click on that.
Okay. We have a partnership with an organization called Teach for All, bringing educational opportunities to communities that doesn't have enough schools and teachers. That is a partnership that comes from our office in Dubai and goes to all of the regions that we work in around the world. Particularly has been successful in Africa. Wow. Also, working on projects with what they call WASH, water access, sanitation, and hygiene. So working with WaterAid to bring those needs to the communities.
Okay.
And I have counterparts at the different regions around the world, and we spend a lot of time trying to learn from each other and figure out, okay, so what's working in Europe might not work for me in Latin America.
Oh, yeah.
And
Context
won't
is
work.
different, right?
Yeah, and won't work for my colleague in Africa, but trying to figure out where those commonalities do connect.
Yeah.
And adapting the partnerships to the unique circumstances.
Yeah. That's super, super sweet. So we got a little time on our hands, so I'm going to ask some more questions if you don't mind. And so I think one of the coolest things about Trellis is just the diversity of audience that we have here and that we're constantly surrounded by. And I just want to learn, like, where you're at is actually a really awesome position at DP World.
Yeah.
Just tell me a little more about you and like how you got to where you are. I think that could be just like fascinating and relatable for the audience.
I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I graduated at the .com bust with an environmental policy degree. Just to tell you how old I am.
Wow.
And there were no jobs. And I went to graduate school to get a master's and got an internship at the Port of Seattle at the time that air quality was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
And that became almost 10 years of building sustainability air quality programs for the port.
Whoa.
And I got a call one day from a colleague, said, do you want to come to Copenhagen? And I was like, what are you talking about? 3 months later, I was moving to Denmark to work for Maersk.
Whoa.
Working in logistics sustainability. And got to live and work in Europe for about 10 years.
Whoa.
Also, then took my dream opportunity to go to the International Maritime Organization. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it just sometimes, like, honestly, I was in the right place at the right time. Like, I worked hard, but a lot of it had to do with luck.
Yeah, but also like taking that one step, like going to the port first, right, in Seattle, and then going from there and just learning, and it's all stepping stones, right?
I mean, sometimes I just took the path of like, I don't know what's going to happen right now, and I don't know if this was a good idea.
Yeah.
But I took the risk, and it managed to pay off.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, hey, that's all for today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. In just a moment, we'll have Joel and Amazon out here for an interview, so stay tuned after the break.
CNOT is the easiest way for companies of all sizes to purchase a portfolio of high-integrity carbon credits. Join other leaders in offsetting your emissions with highly rated carbon reduction and removal credits, all in a matter of minutes. Let CNOT do the hard work for you.
And we're back. I'm talking to Carrie Constable, Director of Decarbonization Strategy at Amazon. Carrie, I've got so many questions in the short time we have. First, starting with what the heck is a Director of Decarbonization Strategy? But let's go right to one of the things that I think is most interesting that you're doing, which is carbon insetting. A lot of people, and I'm just still getting on board with what that means. Talk a little bit about what is carbon insetting.
Yeah. Great to be here, Joel. Thank you so much. And insetting is one of the tools right now that we are using to decarbonize within our supply chain. And that's it is an emerging solution really to bridge the hardest to decarbonize solutions and sectors that are still relatively in pilot stage. Essentially, insetting are carbon credits used for companies to decarbonize inside their inventory or inside their supply chain.
So it's an offset in your own supply chain.
What I would say is it's a carbon credit. So the tool, the common tool, is a carbon credit, and it is for us to use inside to decarbonize our operations.
Yeah.
And so, for example, we can use an inset for our transport operations, and that would apply to low carbon fuels. So a low carbon fuel inset we would use if we can't procure low carbon fuels exactly where we are using our particular fleets. We would then procure an inset, but in a geographic boundary close. And the goal is that ultimately we will build the demand and build the industry so that eventually the insets won't be used and we will just procure that low carbon fuel. So it's a bridge solution.
Okay, so offsets have a lot of challenges around additionality, double counting, permanence, integrity. Do you have some of the same in insetting, or is it different?
We always, Amazon has set a very high bar for integrity on its offset and beyond value chain portfolio. And we are also always working with the industry leading coalitions, the task forces, et cetera, to ensure that those markers for additionality, ensuring that double counting is prevented, et cetera, are insured in our offset portfolio. Similarly for insets, the benefit of this new form of carbon credit, so to speak, is that it is using a lot of the same high integrity principles that have been developed recently to reform the offset market. The Advanced Indirect Mitigation Platform, AIM, is currently developing the rules for insets, and they include all of those principles. And so do I have the same concerns? I think we always should be concerned about integrity, and we should always hold a hard bar. And that's why Amazon sits on the board of AIM. We are part of writing those rules, and we are part of creating a very high integrity industry, so to speak. And that is that's very core to our strategy.
So give us an example of what an inset looks like for Amazon.
So in addition to the low carbon fuel example that I gave you, another example would be methane reduction. So Amazon is a slice of the real economy, works in agriculture, works in transport, cloud, et cetera, and we are exposed to all of the hardest to abate sectors. For agriculture specifically, sometimes you can't decarbonize your beef and dairy emissions, in your scope 3 especially, directly on the farm, but it's very important to reduce and capture the methane from your supply chain. And so what we would do is invest in a project that is a methane reduction project related to beef and dairy, and have it be very close to our farm emissions where we're procuring. But if we can't directly decarbonize on the farm where we're procuring, we would, as a bridge, purchase an inset that represents and is very close to the supply chain decarbonization that we are ultimately aiming to achieve.
And then at some point you hope that you can actually do that offset on the farm itself.
Exactly.
And you won't need the inset.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're doing a workshop, I think tomorrow,
yes.
on this. So what are a couple of things that you're going to want the audience to take away?
One of the things that I want the audience to take away is understanding what insets are, and as a bridge solution, because we know that we do not have the solutions at the scale that we need to decarbonize some of the hardest to abate sectors. Yeah. And so that's my first premise. And then the second is just understanding the how. So what and the how tomorrow is really my ultimate goal.
Big topic, so much to cover. Look forward to that session. Carrie Constable from Amazon, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joel.
When I think about environmental justice, for me, it involves three cornerstones: people, policy, and practice.
I want to thank everyone at Verge and everyone who's part of this conference for the work that you're doing to innovate and advance climate solutions.
Electrification is the abundance agenda. It's good economic policy. It's good for our communities. It's good for our health.
1 year ago, Amazon launched its first custom all-electric Rivian delivery van.
I'm John Davies. I've led the network for the past 15 years, and there are more than 160 companies that are participating.
Without supporting our racial, cultural, and socioeconomic diversity, we cannot hope to address the myriad of challenges that lay ahead of us.
So, hopefully you enjoyed those interviews. There's a lot to unpack here after this first day of keynotes. The biggest thing I think that I'm taking away is that sustainability, that the narrative's changing. It's changing because it's not because sustainability is a good thing for the heart now. It's actually good for business. You can see with DP World and Amazon that it's important for resilience in the supply chain, and it's important for business in the bottom line too. And Eileen from the keynotes from Below Earth also really mentioned this, right? Solar and wind becoming cheaper and one of the cheapest way to add new energies to the grid. So there is so much more to unpack here. I think I am ready to go talk to a bunch of the other folks here at the next breakout session, and then some networking sessions this evening to continue really honing in and gaining the optimism we need, but also to continue pedaling, to continue the momentum, and continue working on what this movement needs right now. Tomorrow, Grant Harrison, who is our VP of Sustainability, of Sustainable Finance and ESG, he will be your host for the live stream, and we really hope that you will join us once again for day 2 of Trellis Impact 2025. We're really excited to have you again, and thank you. See you all soon.